Hi there, everybody. Roxanne Steed here. I'm going to try something a little bit different today. I am going to share with you a reading from our new book called Earth and Sky. I've illustrated the essays by Judy Benson in this book. We got it published right before Christmas of last year, and we had several book signings and readings. Were a lot of fun, and we both have had some family things that we've had to stop and take care of first and drop the book signings. But I did want to get the word out a little bit more about this book. I love the writings that I've been able to put with Judy. I love the illustrations. I love the whole thing. So I wanted to share with you a little bit. The whole book is divided up by seasons. We both love to hike. We both love being out in nature. And some of the essays and illustrations were done together at the same time. We'd, go off for a weekend at a nature center and we'd spend time there. And we began right before the pandemic, and then of course the pandemic hit, and so part of this takes place during that year. And so some of the things, some of the writings and illustrations were done separately and apart from each other. Sometimes we'd talk about the topic first, and then sometimes we would each go on our own and write and paint, and then bring together the paintings that made sense. So anyway, the first one that I'm going to do a reading of her essay. I'm trying to get this in front of the camera. So the illustration is from a sketchbook page of mine that I was out on a hike with my husband. Here he is in the distance, and there's this big stone wall in this park that we would like to go hike in. And it's right there on the coast near Stonington in Connecticut, where I live. So anyway, here's Judy's essay called Rocks. Rocks tell stories to those who listen. Geologists will recount tales of rock cycles. Instead of static inert masses, they talk of rocks transforming over millennia under forces of heat, pressure, earthquakes, and volcanoes. These give birth to the congregations of minerals compacted into giant masses, only to be moved, weathered by the elements, and transported by wind and water as pebbles, stones of all sizes and tiny shards, raw materials for soil and the beginnings of the next rock cycle. In the landscape of the Northeast, rocks left by the glaciers dominate many forests and coastal inlets. Hikers may have a favorite boulder, one split by a lightning strike or holding a miniature forest garden of ferns that naturalists call a polypody, or offering a lookout above the waves on the rocky shore. But the permanence that human admirers ascribe to them is an illusion. The rocks are changing imperceptibly through the erosion and persistence of moss, lichen, and the elements. A sudden storm and rising seas may suddenly lift what seemed immovable. My favorite rock is from my childhood. It exists no more, at least not in the form that I knew it. From the common gray granite of so many of its glacial kin there in northern New Jersey and the rest of the Northeast, it had a sloped front that I would try to slide down despite the bumpy surface. A wide crack down the front had filled with a velvet ribbon of moss, making a vibrant green stripe set off against the dark stone. It had a flat top that I made a throne where I could pretend to be a queen. Sitting there, I was the benevolent ruler of the little forest in my backyard of the mighty oaks, the rhododendron that made a canopy bed inside its branches, of the squirrels and the robins and the earthworms. When I and my neighborhood friends, Leanne and Leona, were looking for something to do, we often ended up in this quarter-acre woodland, gathering sticks for make-believe fires, catching bugs, mixing mud pies to dry in the sun on stone ovens. This pocket of nature existed among a neighborhood of small lots and older houses, duplexes, and apartments. The home I grew up in had a small front yard and a typically sized back lawn. But through some fluke of how the street was divided into private properties, our backyard adjoined with an undeveloped lot left wild. The wild lot came with the rest of the property when my parents bought it, and they left it alone for my first 10 years or so. Then one day, for reasons I never understood, my father hired landscapers to turn the back lot into lawn with a bulldozer, chainsaws, and truck to haul away the giant boulders. My favorite rock disappeared. By then, I was too old for playing queen, but I missed my rock and the shady palace where it was the finest furniture. Once, as part of a writing workshop, I was asked to consider my childhood landscape as the frame of reference for my relationship with nature. As I considered the assignment, I went back to that New Jersey neighborhood generally, but more specifically to that backlot woodland and even precisely to that favorite rock. I imagined myself sitting atop it, my bare summer legs enjoying the cool stone, birds chirping in the trees above. It, it was, I now realize, the place where I first loved nature, and it seemed to love me back. This was, I believe, how I first experienced God's love for me and of all creation. If I could have articulated that then, I would have told my father the rock was sacred. I'm glad I had at least that time before the bulldozers to get to know that piece of nature. It was the foundation of a lifelong love of the outdoors and how it could touch my soul. Reflecting back on the destruction of that wild place still makes me sad, but also renews my conviction that we need to give others the chance to fall in love with nature and let themselves feel loved in return. Thank you. Thanks, Judy, for your wonderful essays. I still love reading them. It catches me by surprise every time when it brings up that emotional response in me of how nature affects me. And I know there's a lot of you out there like that. So excuse me, sorry about that. If you enjoy nature like I do and are so moved by your surroundings, I invite you to go and check out our book, Earth and Sky. I've got a link to it in my website and on my Instagram links. So you'll find it there. And Amazon will get it to you ASAP. And Judy and I split the proceeds from our efforts. So I appreciate you for supporting our lovely book and Judy's wonderful writings. And I'm hoping you won't need a whole box of Kleenex, but I hope you'll enjoy these writings and illustrations in our book. And I'm also doing a book giveaway. I'm going to try to rig this up on Instagram, so hopefully we'll get this out there. Thanks a lot, you guys. I appreciate it.